All right, so with all of this logic extracted out of the component and into our custom hook, we can now go ahead and get rid of all of this because it is available to us here. And this component is a lot leaner and easier to understand. So again, we have just cut this component down in size by like 100 lines, which is great. Lovely. It's exactly what we want. It means it's one of the best parts of custom hooks. But now we have to think about a little bit more deeply about how we want to do this nested routing. And so we just created these two new components, this post detail edit and this post detail view component. So in each of those, we should at least have each component store the information that's relevant to it. And so if we look at this component here, this post detail component, if we were to go into it, we'll see that we have the post itself here, and then below it, we have an area where you either edit your post if you are the owner, which in this case I am, or you have a place where you can rate the component if you are not the owner. And so in that case, a good thing to do might be to go check that area out, which is right here, this actions area, and let's go ahead and extract everything here out of this component and into either the post detail edit component or the post detail view component. Now the post detail view component will be the part where the user is not the owner. So in this case, the user owns the post, correct? So let's take that part where the user owns the post, grab it, go into the post detail edit section, and create a new component. We'll say export default function post detail edit, and then we will return this section here. Now this needs some data, clearly. It needs a few things. It needs the caption, it needs the set caption handler, it needs the is updating function, and it needs the handle on update function. Now we could certainly just call the use post detail function there, but I feel like it's easier to keep all of that centralized in the post detail component, as this is the only one that's dealing with the post ID. And if we were to call this multiple times, and we'd be fetching that post multiple times, and that's actually not necessary since we know it's going to be the same post that's being edited or that's being viewed. So with the post detail edit component handled, let's do the same thing here for the post detail view component. So we'll export default function post detail view, and we will return the JSX scene here. Grab that, throw it in right here, and let's check out what we need here. Well, first of all, we need the stars input component, and yeah, that looks about right. So let's go ahead and import that. We'll say import stars input from components. Then we'll make sure that it has a rating, set rating, handle on save rating, whether or not the user is logged in, and is saving rating. Now this is interesting because we actually protected this route, so do we actually even need this anymore? I would argue that we probably don't. Given that we know that if the user is accessing this, they're logged in, we can probably just get rid of this section, and instead we'll just say, hey, we'll only disable this if the user is actually currently saving the rating, because we don't want them to be able to click it twice or whatever, so that it sends multiple requests. So cool. We have that out of the way too. Now, let's actually go into the post detail section, and let's comment out everything here now that we've extracted it into their own separate components. And then let's see what we no longer need. Wow. The list of things that's actually just being passed down is pretty large, right? But we're actually going to take advantage of all of this, so don't fret yet. But we won't need the stars input component anymore, so we can get rid of that. Now for everything else, we're going to need a way to actually nest some routing so that in here we can route to either the post detail view or the post detail edit component. And to do that, very simply, we first need to make a few adjustments to the router in the app.js file. Here's what we do. The first thing we do is we go in here and we say, hey, instead of rendering just this path to posts/post ID, What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this wildcard glob thing to the end of it, this asterisk star type thing. And what this does, all it says is it indicates that it'll match any route that starts with posts/post ID to the protected post detail component. So it'll match posts/3 or posts/3/edit or posts/7/ anything really. It doesn't really matter. Anything that starts with posts and then slash and then a number or a string, it actually really doesn't matter what we put here. And anything else will automatically match to this path here. And then inside the post detail component, we can actually go in there and we create a nested router. So we can just do the same thing we did in our app component, which is import the routes component and the route component. And inside this actions, we'll actually render another router. So we'll say, hey, I want this path to be the home path and the element to equal the post detail view component. And then we'll also render the edit path and we'll also match the edit path and we'll match that to the post detail edit component. Now, we haven't imported those components yet, have we? We also haven't exported them. So let's do both those things really quickly. We'll just export default post detail edit from post detail edit, and post detail view from post detail view / post detail view. Then we import them. So we can import post detail view and post detail edit, just like that. So now those components are available to us and we can pass them right here. We also have to handle one more thing though. We need to import the not found component, because remember that all routes will match to this component. So this only matches to the home page when it's just this route right here, post/3/ whatever. Look, there's nothing there at the moment, but what we're indicating here is once we save this, that the post detail view component should be rendered for this route. And if we were to tack /edit onto the end of it, then it should render, and see how it renders the same thing here because there's nothing there. That's what it would render currently. But we want to make sure that if a user goes to some other route that doesn't exist at the moment, route path equals anything else, we're going to render the not found element. Cool. So we're almost done here. And in this case, we've handled the nested routing, but there's a few things to note here. One, we need to make sure that these components get all the props they need, because if we were to go, oh look, it's working, lovely, but it doesn't have a caption here because we haven't given it any data yet. And if we go back to the actual homepage, we see that this works as well. And that's because it's matching that home route, that index route right here, to the post detail view component, and it's matching the edit route, to the post detail edit component. Now, if we put something else there, something wrong, you'll see we have this 404 page. Now, that's probably not the most stylish way to handle that, but honestly, for our use case, it'll do just fine. So let's go back to the homepage here. Now, we should probably do two things, first of all, and we'll handle both those in the next in the next video, but we now have our nested router set up, and we have our post detail edit and our post detail view nested components set up that are being rendered depending on the nested route seen in our post detail component. And remember that the other cool thing about this is it's rendering this no matter what, and it's rendering the nested components or the nested routed components only in this section right here, which is kind of cool for a number of reasons, because you can do that pretty much anywhere in your application, is render one thing all the time and then in another section render based on just the route. And you can do that for different routes throughout your application, and you don't have to worry about anything else. It's just a cool, neat feature of React Router DOM that I really enjoy. But for the time being, we're pretty much there. We're almost done. We're going to wrap it up with the next video or two and then call it.